Hi. Is it broken? Is it yes? Kira.
Hi, I'm the most powerful divination to ever be power crept out of a standard format. Maya.
So Izzet's really good.
What?
And
In my Christian standard format?
it's remained really good, I think, is the defining thing.
Looking at the standard metagame 2 months ago, I was like, hell yeah. We've got Izzet Elementals, we've got like 4 color elementals decks, we've got like big reanimate nonsense.
We've got Landfall.
Yeah, standard's really, really cool right now. And just slowly I've watched Izzet Prowess creep back up from tier 3 to tier 2, from tier 2 to tier 1, and here like top of tier 1, and just teeter over into S tier again.
That's kind of been the pace of Izzet lately as well, which is something that, like, I almost want to say, like, needs to be studied. Like, the last year, you know, we talked a little bit about, and I think it's come up quite frequently, you know, 2025, the year of Izzet. You know, we had Izzet Prowess, we had the Corey Steelcutter metagame, we had Vivi or Nitier. Duh. Like, that was the year of Izzet. And we touched on ways that the deck constantly improved, or that the color pairing constantly improved, whether it was through new cards being printed like Corey Steelcutter, like Vivi, whether it was the mana base giving access to just unfettered good mana, whether it was the fast lands, when we got Spirebluff Canal reprinted into Outlaws, when we had Steam Vents reprinted into Lorwyn. Now we've got Stormcarved Coast, and we've got Slow Lands, and we've got Verges. Like, everything and anything and everything has continued to improve Izzet. And there's been moments where it's been mitigated. It fell off a little bit. And then it picks back up. And like you said, it's always there. It's ever present.
It's always there, and importantly, it's always good. And, like, from a broad game design perspective, I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably good that Izzet is a deck that is playable, because usually it's pretty cheap and it's appealing to new players and it rewards, you know, iteration and learning the math and stuff like that. But I'm a little worn out by it. And what I kind of wanted to do today is have a look at why Izzet has uniquely been so good in standard for so long across so many iterations.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it was just like, there was a period where it was the de facto best deck for sure, right? When we had the Vivi or Nidia standard, is it broken? Like, I kind of almost want to dismiss that in that conversation, because we're like, okay, you know, there was a card that was just transparently too powerful. And we had a similar thing, not quite to the same extent, in the Steelcutter format. That card got banned because, again, that card was broken, but less so than the like Ornidier combo stuff that was happening. But even throughout all those periods, even when they were banned, Izzet has remained really, really powerful in a way that is really resilient to changes in the format. And that is weird and that is unique. And I kind of want to talk about why we think that is.
Interestingly as well, the archetypes that have been supported are quite different. Izzet Looting is different from Izzet Prowess, is different from Izzet Spellelementals, is different from Izzet Elementals. Like, the same colors with very different muscles. You know, same kind of skeleton, but different muscles. So where are we starting?
So we're starting with, kind of broadly speaking, Izzet Prowess. Because as much as I'd love to talk about the 15 different broken Izzet decks that have been in the format over the last 12 months, I think Izzet Prowess is the right, like, microcosm of all the, like, things coming together. So the first thing I want to talk about Izzet Prowess is kind of not the titular card, but the card that is the most Izzet Prowess card in the format and has been for a really long time, and that is Stormchaser's talent.
Yeah. Very defining.
Yeah. And on its face, pretty innocuous, right? It's a 1-mana 1/1 prowess. That's what that card reads like, because 4 mana is a lot of mana, and sometimes you get to pay 4 mana to bring back, like, a Burst Lightning. Except that that's not at all what it's done, right? It is a 1-mana 1/1, but the ability to, like, upgrade and get everything back is on, say it with me now, a hard to interact with enchantment. Woo! And the things that it's getting back are not just burst lightnings, right? It's not just this sort of like reach mechanic or anything like that. Because of the spells that are sort of around Stormchaser's talent, it's given decks that otherwise struggle in the longer game a lot of reach and a lot of versatility.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious cards here are Boomerang Basics and This Town Ain't Big Enough.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two cards is banned for, I would argue, Stormchaser's talent sins. But the fact that you can get to a point where you just have this sort of like infinite value engine, making a lot of 1/1s, shores up a lot of its inherent weaknesses. And the other card that you get back with, well, maybe not anymore, but the other card that you were getting back with the upgrade was, of course, Stock Up.
Yep.
Which is maybe the most powerful card draw spell in the last 10 years of printing. With the 10 years, that like just cuts off like Khans of Tarkia.
So where Dig Through Time comes in.
Yeah, I think we're just after Treasure Cruise with that, so I'm sticking to it. I think this is like Stock Up is the best card draw spell since Treasure Cruise.
About to be. No longer the best.
No longer
depending
the best.
on how good flow state is.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that we've had this like little, really hard to interact with, like core game engine that just keeps flying under the radar is part of what has made this deck completely deranged.
I think what's interesting as well is that Stormchaser's talent comes up very frequently in the competitive discussions as whether or not it's actually worth it. And I think there have been various iterations on Izzet Prowess decks that toy with maybe not running a full playset or not running it at all, and favoring other cards like Elusive Otter has kind of come and gone in the Prowess decks. And what's interesting is that it always comes back. And I think that speaks to its strength. Again, a difficult to interact with permanent. There's very few decks that can favorably, is the keyword, interact with a Stormchaser's talent. There's occasionally a moment where you can Maelstrom Pulse and hit 2 of them. But 3 mana to hit 2 1-mana spells is not a really favorable exchange. And so it's interesting where Stormchaser's talent has become such a strong mainstay card. It's almost always good. You almost always get a body, and sometimes you get a card back, and sometimes you get the Stormchaser's talent back as well, and then it's 2 bodies and 2 cards.
And do you know when the conversations about whether or not Stormchaser's talent is good enough to play are happening? Usually when Izzet Prowess is already dominant.
Yeah.
Right? It's a question that's like, because that card is kind of too slow for the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A 1-mana 1/1 with Prowess is like good, but in the mirror it dies easily to like the interaction and the burn. It's very much a card that a lot of its use case is in like slightly longer, slightly drawn out games. It's a card that kind of incidentally pushes a lot of the bigger decks out of the format because all of a sudden your Izzet Prowess deck can go over the top of you, or it can get through that one additional piece of removal, which tends to be a problem. I kind of think Stormchaser's talent is quietly the most impactful card in Standard over the last 18 months.
Well, the interesting thing too is back before the ban to end all bans, when we had the This Town bans and everything, one of the considerations that people were discussing is Stormchaser's talent should be banned. Not necessarily in place of This Town Ain't Big Enough, because that card was problematic in its own ways. But there was a consideration for this card is just good. Whether it's in Izzet Prowess or at the time, whether it was in Esper Bounce, it's just really, really powerful. It provides a lot of value. It recurs very easily. And because of the pick up ability of multiple cards with This Town and now Boomerang Basics, you just kind of get to just do that forever. And so having it still stick around despite everything is really interesting. And I think in the next ban window, depending on how like long the, Izzet's reign of power is, I want to start seeing things that actually hit it and actually affect it. No, I don't want to see Stock Up banned, because Stock Up gets played in decks that are not just Izzet Prowess. But there's a real consideration for Stormchaser's talent's time, Colstoke, Gear Hulk, being up.
Yeah, let's just print Prismatic Ending into the format. It's fine.
So if there's a ubiquitous card that kind of holds the archetype up, how come it still remains so powerful? Like, what else about the archetype and about the cards in it make it such a prevalent dominating force?
So Izzet is really interesting because it's kind of uniquely positioned to capitalize on not individual cards, but kind of like the way formats are shifting. I think Izzet Prowess is very good at capitalizing on power creep, which is kind of a like funny and slightly weird and esoteric thing to say, but I'll explain myself properly. Because blue has obviously been power crept, right? But so have all the other colors, right? It's not just, oh, they printed stock up. They also printed Badger Cub, and they also printed
Superior Spider-Man.
Superior Spider-Man and Monstrous Rage, and
Corey Steelcutter.
All the colors, I would say, on average over a long time frame, are being power crept roughly equally, right? Things are going up, broadly speaking, at the same rate. The difference is that the way that power creep affects a metagame, and especially this kind of power creep, I think acts in the favor of Izzet Prowess. Because the way we've seen power creep progress is in proactive cards. So we've seen power creep in stuff like Badger Cub, in stuff like Corey Steelcutter, in stuff like Monstrous Rage, where you are actively incentivized to tap out, to play to the board, to play a more linear strategy, to play something that's a little bit lighter on the removal and more all in on the powerful thing, because the powerful thing you're doing is so good. And Izzet is very good at capitalizing on it because it is kind of the best combination of very fast and very consistent. Because Izzet Prowess has a lot of cantrips and card selection, and also a lot of threats that get really big if it's not interacted with, all of a sudden, if the metagame is shifting to be less interactive and more all-in, then Izzet Prowess's matchups are only going to get better and better until there is some nonsense combo deck that's killing you on turn 2. The other thing is, because the more powerful cards are also more efficient, it means that they interact with Izzet's removal suite more favorably for Izzet. So it is, Izzet has a hard time dealing with Superior Spider-Man, but is, dealing with a Badger Cub is a walk in the park.
Yep.
So as things get pushed and condensed into lower mana and lower power and toughness, then Izzet all of a sudden, Izzet's tools are inherently better. And they're tools that Izzet gets to play anyway because they're already playing the best burn spells, because the burn spells can go face. The last element of this capitalizing on power creep is that as power creeps forward, games tend to shorten. And the other half of Izzet's removal suite is bounce spells. Bounce spells have traditionally been pretty bad in Magic, right? It's, you return a thing to your hand, but the tempo hit is not so great that if I slam my Tarmogoyf again next turn, it's not necessarily going to matter. It's worth 3 or 4 points of damage. There are a lot of occasions with the way that mana curves play out these days where if you bounce the right permanent at the right time, that card is just never coming back down again. It is just path to exile with upside. And as all of these things sort of become true as the game gets more power crept, I think Izzet's position is just going to be better and better because it can naturally balance the right interaction with the incredibly powerful creatures. And I think I think we've seen that again and again and again over the last 12 months.
Well, and the cards that go into these decks just keep getting better.
Oh, yeah.
Accumulate Wisdom is Ancestral Recall, and also now, not necessarily in these Izzet decks, but in the right colors, they've just put Ancestral Recall back in Standard. And so it's interesting how, I think we joked at our, Izzet's not getting enough love. Blue sucks. Blue, it's such an unloved color. And meanwhile, we've had, what are some of the best blue spells that we've had recently? It's Quantum Riddler, Accumulate Wisdom. Stumbling here because it is the same thing. Quantum Riddler, Accumulate Wisdom, Stock Up, Consult the Star Charts.
Flow State?
Flow State. I'm just saying things that we already have. Like, there is already such a glut of really good blue cards.
And sorry, also to some extent, Stormchaser's talent.
Sorry, how could Stormchaser's talent? This town ain't big enough. Boomerang basics. Even going into the future, we have Flow State and we have Mana Sculpt. Like
even into the Floodmaw.
Into the Floodmaw. Bounce Off. The suite of blue spells are just good. And even in those, instances where you think maybe a card, in Izzet Spelementals, Sunderflock on its face didn't look that great. Shocker, it's fantastic. You've got Eddymurk Crab, Tolarian Terror. You've got the Unagi of Kyoshi Island. All of these cards are great. There are very few instances in which any of these cards are bad. There's instances where they're not ideal. Sunderflocking into your other elemental's opponent is not great. It doesn't do anything. But it's still a flying threat.
2 mana 5/5 flyer or whatever.
Like,
seems fine.
And it feels as though there are very few other color pairings that have been as favored as Izzet has over the last year. All of the design, all of the incredible power seem to be pushed in this specific pairing. We've had some seemingly powerful cards. Remember when Ketramos
the Moose
was predicted to be
the Moose.
An incredible card? That card for a period of time was expensive.
$130.
Like,
yeah.
it is $10.
Mm-hmm. $17 if you want a foil.
Like, there have been few cards in other color pairs that have been as ubiquitous and as just open-faced powerful as Izzet cards have been lately. And you can see that as well in the percentage of cards in various colors that have been banned recently. The two most banned colors are blue and red. Between Screaming Nemesis, Vivi Ornithia, Monstrous Rage, this town, like, it's blue and red by and large. And it doesn't feel as though that's changing. Flow State is going to be problematic. Mana Sculpt has the potential to be problematic. And we still haven't, and we still have Stormchaser's talent. We still have this core of really powerful cards that are just good.
The next thing I wanted to talk about in terms of why Izzet has been so good, and this very much touches on what you were just saying, is the card stock up. Because this card is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this deck.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, what is a traditional weakness of a prowess deck?
Card draw.
Yeah. It's you go off once, and then if your opponent interacts with you, you typically can go off like another time, like 70% of the time. Then if they have that second piece of removal, you're dead. You're out of gas. Because inherently in the way that it wants to play is it has a lot of card selection and a lot of card velocity. It wants to cast a lot of spells rather than, say, casting one big 4-drop. And as a result, because you're casting lots of cheap and efficient spells that are getting benefits from the actual casting prowess triggers or slick shot show off triggers, for instance, you tend to go through your card quantity very quickly on your big combo turns. And because it is a synergy deck, not only do you need the right number of cards, but you need the right cards. So even if you were going to play something like Quick Study in Izzet Prowess, because it draws you 2 cards, but you don't get any selection alongside that, it's not necessarily powerful enough to push you into be able to combo again enough of the time to justify its slot. Stock Up fixes this problem. It's like, well, I see you're out of cards. What if I gave you not only 2 whole cards for 1 card, but what if I also gave you the right 2 cards and the ability to do it again off your Stormchaser's talent? The fact that this plugs the traditional Izzet hole in such an incredibly efficient and incredibly effective way for so few card slots in a way that interacts with the other cards in your deck really positively is part of what has meant this deck just doesn't go away.
Look, on top of that as well, as mentioned previously, the mana is great.
Yeah.
The mana is perfect. You've got Verges, you've got Shocks, you've got Surveils, you've got fast and slow lands because of the tempo of rotation. You have everything you could ever want.
A multiversal passage,
Like,
starting town.
You don't even need them. Like, we're going to enter a period of time in the Strixhaven meta where they can just play anything and it'll be fine. Between Steam Vents, Stormcarved Ghost, Spirebluff Canal, River Pyre Verge, that's 16 lands as is. Depending then where you want to spend your extras, you do have Multiversal Passage takes you to 20. You need one more set, Starting Town. You're done. Your mana is beyond unbelievably perfect. And the ability to cast your spells is so important. And when the color requirements, because of Izzet Prowess's low curve style deck, usually the color pip requirements are super important. You need to have access to colored mana. You never want to have a Demolition Field in your Prowess deck. You never want to have, a Petrified Hamlet in your Prowess deck. Having colorless mana could actually kill you. And so the access to unfettered, perfect, not even basics. Sorry, didn't even mention Thundering Falls. You have Surveils and everything. Like, it's so perfect. And that is really important for a deck that's as critical mass as Prowess is.
It is definitely Prowess benefits more than the average deck for having perfect mana. For sure. Last but not least, on my list of things that is the reasons why Izzet has been so ubiquitous and powerful over the last 12 months is that Izzet has the best flex slots.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little weird and a little niche, but it's kind of the idea that no matter what the metagame looks like, there is a version of Izzet that is good. Because if you need another big creature, you can put Eddy Mercrab in your deck. If there's a lot of problematic non-land permanents running around, you have the best bounce spell in the game, probably, Into the Floodmaw, right? You have Bounce Off for instances where your opponent's removal does extra things. You have so many incredibly powerful and incredibly versatile threats. And even if the metagame is really big, you can switch back to Hearth Elemental Sunderflock.
Yeah.
Right. The way the entire format has sort of played out and the actual just the quantity of incredibly powerful blue and red cards has meant that no matter what the format looks like, unless it is just beating up on Izzet, and even then, no matter what the format looks like, Izzet is always going to be A, powerful, and B, resilient. And I think that's why Izzet hasn't gone away.
Mm-hmm.
It just has enough stuff that it's never gonna.
Look, it's got flex slots. It's got good mana. It's got the best spells. There's no world in which at some level you wouldn't want to consider playing Izzet Prowess. The other thing that I think makes Izzet Prowess really enticing is that it's very straightforward. The game plan, turn sideways. It's, there's a bit of extra brain power in terms of your card selection. There's a little bit of extra brain power in opts and sleight of hands and things of that sort. But the general game plan, it's very similar to a mono red aggro deck. And mono red aggro is a great place for a lot of people to start when they're just getting into competitive Magic because it's very linear. It has a very straightforward cast a bunch of spells and then kill your opponent. And so it's enticing, but it's also a deck that has a low skill floor and a high skill ceiling. The best Prowess players are amazingly good, and they know the deck front to back. They understand timing and they understand card selection very well. But even those, I'm not a fantastic comp player. I'm, working as hard as I possibly can to put my hours and my rounds in. I will still lose in a, playing Prowess, a match I should have won because I don't have the reps in. The deck is still good though. And there's games that I'll win that I have no right to win because of how good the cards are on their own. And so the deck is incredibly prolific. if Wizards decides for some reason they can stop printing good blue cards, we might see a bit of a dip in the popularity, but it just doesn't feel like that's coming anytime soon.
Yeah, and it feels like there's already enough of a mass of good Izzet cards that unless they, not only would they have to stop printing Izzet cards, they would have to ban like 6 cards to make this deck stone cold unplayable. Like, the deck is already playing Elusive Otter. Like, think about how good Monastery Swiftspear must be for the deck if the deck is playing Elusive Otter.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If Stormchaser's talent gets banned, projecting into the future, the next ban list has come out. The bans are Stormchaser's talent, Flow State, Badger Mole Cub.
Damn.
Superior Spider-Man. A girl can dream.
A girl can dream.
A girl can dream. It's not okay that it activates cast triggers. It's just not okay. But in that world, right, there's still a world in which it's mostly fine, or you just have a more linear Spelemental style deck. It's not as prowess-y, but it's got a lot of the same core components. And Izzet, as a color, is still fine.
Yeah. He's still fine. It's still tempo, still kill people with spells.
It's still so good. And with all that said, that's all we have for you today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. New episodes release at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. You can keep track of all of our releases at Raise MTG on both Instagram and Blue Sky. You can keep track of Maya on the same platforms at Maya MTG and myself at Kira Bobira. A huge thank you to the Henhouse Recording Studio for the ongoing use of their space, and a huge thank you to our sponsor, MTG Bazaar. A huge thanks to Pat and the Bazaar crew for the ongoing support. This show would not be possible without their help. And if you're interested in playing in the biggest cash prize standard event coming up, check out mtgbazaarevents.com for the 100K standard event coming up in July.
That's a lot of Ks.
It's a lot of Ks indeed. And until next week, remember, may the storm yield only when your last enemy is fallen.